Hello, I'm Chuck Bluthal, Director of Education for the Restoration Technical Institute. And in this episode of When It Comes Down to It, we're talking about sins of the substrate. Now, a substrate is any material that you're going to coat over, paint over, wallpaper over, cover over with flooring. In other words, subflooring, drywalling, backer boards. These are all substrates, including, of course, concrete. The biggest issue we have, of course, in our industry is typically flooring problems. And sins of the substrate can give us some really big issues. Number one, we're always looking for pre-existing conditions. Any type of buckling, warping, rotting, or discoloration, or any softness or weakness or squeaks or creaks of the floor is the first thing we're going to be looking for, because obviously they have to be repaired before we're going to put any flooring on the top in order to make a perfect job. The most important thing when we're talking about putting down, say, vinyl floors, is that we have to worry about the floor being perfect so we don't have print through. Any mistaken subflooring will basically show up in the top finish of the finished roll down vinyl floor. This is very common with all thinner type vinyl floors, so make absolutely sure you've got that taken care of. Now, besides our pre-existing conditions, is secondarily, if we're changing floor types, we need to make absolutely sure that the subfloor or the substrate is going to be suitable for the new flooring type. So again, always follow manufacturer's directions and make sure you have improved the old subfloor properly to the new flooring selection that's being put in. Last but not least, of course, our biggest one is always moisture in concrete causing flooring failures. Now, folks, remember, we used to use vinyl asbestos tile, VAT, back in the day. Asbestos is not a mold food, and neither is the vinyl that's in that asbestos holding it all together to make your floor finish product. No mold food means what? Harder for mold to grow. And it would also withstand water fairly well as far as dampness. But of course, we always had some edge curling and some other problems that did happen along those lines. Now, with our newer materials today, our newer vinyl floors, they are now typically made with a considerable amount of paper product as a filler instead of asbestos. And of course, paper, as we know, is a fantastic mold food. As a matter of fact, pre-digested cellulose by a friend of mine, Dr. Joe, is basically called the incompletely irrefusable food source. In other words, it's almost like the $4.99 buffet or all the cracked crab and steak you can eat at that casino. It is literally irresistible. You're going to go in knowing that you're going to spend a lot more than the $5, of course, gambling, but you're going in for that food because you can't resist it. Pre-digested cellulose is that way for mold. It absolutely loves it. Now think about, we got a moist concrete substrate. We're going to put down paper on top of it, and the top seal is going to be a huge vinyl seal. So we're actually going to trap the moisture between the concrete and the vinyl top, and that, of course, is going to give you a great possibility of growing mold inside of your flooring system. And that's why Mrs. Jones may wind up with multiple more colors in her floor put in the basement than she originally suggested. Our biggest way of fighting this is determining two things. Is the concrete dry enough for flooring to be put in? And make sure it's the appropriate dryness level for that floor. Secondly, will that floor stay dry? Biggest issue with concrete, it is not a true impenetrable vapor barrier. In other words, it's classified as a vapor barrier by the International Building Code, but when it comes down to it, water does move through it, which means that it will go from a wet subsoil through the concrete into the drier built environment, affecting our flooring on its path. If we have dry subsoils around the concrete and the concrete's going to stay dry, then cellulose materials, even though still a little risky, could be applied. Simple rule, always avoid materials that could be mold food in the damp environment. When it comes down to it, quite easy. Remember, you as the contractor, once you start the flooring, you own that project, including the subfloor. So make sure you take care, no pre-existing conditions, it's proper for the flooring that's coming in, and there's no excess moisture in it. And when it comes down to putting floors on concrete at or below grade, simple thing to remember is no cellulose, no latex, no mold foods in either the adhesives or the flooring systems at or below grade of the soil in wet locations, and that'll help your flooring systems last a lot longer. As always, thank you for learning with rtilearning.com.